Welcome to Scary Story Podcast. Today I have a couple of stories. One of them is of a strange encounter. The other is about how far a person can go to get what they want. My name is Edwin, and here's a scary story. Bad fortune. It was a whole other life back then. And trying to remember things and taking notes in order to tell my story, lots of things came up. Many of those I had to put behind me. I doubt many people will listen to my story. Well, not enough to identify me completely. Recently, I met someone who had gone through something similar, and it appears as though it happens the same way every time. Either way, I've omitted some details to save me the trouble. Hopefully. Like I said, it was completely different. If I had to put a start to it, I'd go straight to my job at the grocery store. The one with the kind woman at the front counter, but with a terrible business partner, which was her husband. He would show up drunk and harass the female employees when I wasn't there. But I don't know what I would have done had I been there for some of the situations that they've talked about. I literally could not afford to lose those measly $88.90 per week. Even though it was around 2001, that kind of money did not get me anywhere. I would end up selling water bottles and candy along the streets on the weekends, which paid all right. It got me through a few things. Money was tight. Every day I would walk to the bus stop and pray that those 35 cents would still be in my pocket. I had gotten paranoid about checking for change through my pants because of that. A habit that has stuck with me even today. Life had gotten a little more difficult around that time. My girlfriend had left our daughter to me, saying that she needed a fresh start, whatever that meant. I tried calling her and her family, but they didn't help. A couple of my buddies from other jobs that I had here and there told me that they had seen her getting on a Greyhound bus. But she looked, for lack of a better word, generic, so it could have been anybody. At least that's what I told myself at the time. My neighbor helped out a lot. I think everyone around the old apartment building had their own set of demons, and sometimes we got together to battle them. She used to work for 3 hours during the day, so I would watch her dog, a large old blind golden retriever, for a bit, and feed him before going out to my jobs. I wonder how Jane's doing, actually. Last I heard, she was getting into the internet thing and moved out. I really hope she got her project off the ground. Anyway, she used to watch my daughter while I was at work. Dollar store frozen pizzas and ramen were a thing around the apartment. I tried to get the good stuff from the grocery store, but under the threat of the boss man there, I would be lucky to sneak an apple home. And I know there's a lot of people out there, hard-working people, that try to get the most amount of ounces of food for that dollar. When you get to the end of the week, annoyed by another $10 late fee charge for your water bill. God forbid when your child gets sick and needs to see the doctor at one of those walk-in clinics, ones with a 3-hour wait, and then have to see a prescription, one that will set you back another $40 or so. Some people talk about their tough times like they're proud of them, but not me. I hated every minute of it, and I think the only reason I stayed alive became clear once I heard my daughter laugh. All those times we were watching cartoons in that old television set, the one that came with the apartment. It was around 8, almost 9 at night when I finally got off work. I wanted to stay longer, but I remember Jane telling me that she would have to be somewhere at 9:30 and suggested in her quirky ways that it was okay, that Benny, her dog, could watch her, that he had protected her before. It was a story told 5,000 times by Jane. The near robbery, and how Benny lost a tooth while he was saving her. She loved that dog. The bus passed by me, straight to the bus stop as I took off running after it. It was the last one of the night. Well, unless I wanted to wait another hour and a half. But I got there, and I happened to see another man running towards the door of the bus as well. I took a few seconds before climbing on, giving the other guy a chance to catch up, which he did shortly after. Then I stepped onto the bus. Then I felt my face get cold when I only felt the dime that was in my pocket. I must have lost that quarter somewhere. I started searching for it in my other pocket, but it wasn't there. The other guy, dressed like he didn't belong in a bus, said that it was all right. He dropped a quarter and a dime, and then another set of coins. I looked at him, nodding, saying thank you, before grabbing my seat near the back of the bus. Then he sat across from me, completely still, though at times I glanced over and caught him looking in my direction. One of those times I looked at him, and through that eye contact, he spoke up. "Long night?" "You have no idea, my man," I told him, before looking toward the window again. And that was my first encounter with that man. Every so often, for the next couple of weeks, I would see him. He would purchase a candy bar for me and casually ask about my day. Or he would nod at me as I passed down that sidewalk on my way to start my shift. It was obvious for me that he stood out. Walking around in a dark suit in an area of town with no offices or places like those where people have to dress that way. So I asked him one day that I had seen him often around there, and out of curiosity I wanted him to tell me what he did for a living. "I'll tell you about it," he said, and then mentioned my first name. Now, this was a complete stranger, and by that time I had the suspicion that he knew me. I swear at the time I thought it was someone I owed money to, trying to get those $10 back. I was surprised, though, when he said that he was simply sent to help. Nothing more. He said things about my life that I hadn't told anyone about, like that my daughter's 4th birthday was coming up, and what I wanted to get to surprise her. It happened in a matter of seconds, and I'm not sure what else he said to me because my mind was so numb with information that it simply stopped processing. And just like that, he said that if I wanted to talk about it more, to come find him that next day, at the donut shop on Main after work. He didn't even try to get me to say yes. In fact, he didn't even ask it as a question. He just said it and kept walking in the same direction he had been going before we bumped into each other. He wanted to help. At the time, I thought of Jane and her story about how she got ripped off by a timeshare salesman. Honestly, I was thinking it was something along those lines. And it stayed on my mind for the rest of the night, the next morning, and all through my shift at work. Help? It was something I rarely thought about. I mean, the last time was when I was applying for free daycare as one of the programs from my city. But reaching for my pocket once again to make sure that the dime and quarter were still there, let me make up my mind. And so after work, I reached Randy's Donuts on the corner of Main. He was sitting at one of those metal tables outside, waiting for me to come up to him. He didn't wave and he didn't smile. I walked up to him, trying to make small talk about the weather and ask about his day. But he jumped straight to the point. There was no messing around, no chit-chat, and this time he looked much more serious than before. He told me that I had been in financial trouble, that he could help. I don't know why, but I thought for a moment that he would want me to do some illegal stuff or something bad, like kill somebody for money. But it wasn't. He prefaced the whole thing by telling me that if I talked about it with anyone, I could say goodbye to my family. But in a way that seemed like he was joking. He knew my parents' names, my daughter's future kindergarten's name, and even my neighbors. I told you earlier that I had met another person who also went through something similar. The way she puts it, she was given an offer she could not refuse. I don't know if she meant it literally, but I was about to find out what that felt like. This guy, who never told me his name, told me that he could offer money, a business, and anything I wanted. That he had a client who looked for people to simply take over a part of a business, and that would be all. I would be given a ridiculous amount of money, in parts, that I would likely never see him again. Once you leave Earth, everything will belong to my client. He said it in a tone that I hadn't quite heard before. This time, he waited for my response. This had gotten very serious very quickly, and I didn't even know what I needed to say to him. I just wanted to accept and go home. I remember how dumb everything sounded, and even though I had never been scammed like Jane had, I'm pretty sure that's how it had gotten started. Immediately, he took out a document from his coat pocket, unfolded it, and that's when I found out his name. He was a lawyer, though his name, I'm afraid to repeat. And the details of that document is what I'm scared to speak up on. It didn't go over many details, but it included a sum of money and an explanation as to how it worked in a short 2-sentence statement. I can't go over what I exchanged. I know they'll somehow identify me through what I've told you so far, but it's within the bounds of what's allowed. A couple of days after that, I received a delivery. I heard that the exchange had been made, and life changed drastically for myself and my daughter. And I never thought that I'd be involved in this, nor that this was real. You would be amazed at the list of others that are in it. Names you've heard, like I'm sure you've heard mine, that are also a part of, as they like to call it, the blessed. How ironic.